Good morning. All right. I called you all today so that we could have a conversation and I could give you a briefing on two personnel decisions that we made as a team on Friday of last week. We made the decision that we would end the city's relationship with Miguel Southwell and with Joanne Macrina. Miguel Southwell had served on my team as the leader and general manager of Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. Joanne Macrina had served as my leader of Watershed. Today really is not about the circumstances regarding their terminations or their exits. The bottom line is that we chose to go our separate ways, and that this conversation is about the future. And so I'm not going to address the circumstances around Miguel's departure or Ms. Macrina's departure, but the people of Atlanta deserve an explanation of who will run two of the city's most important operating units and why I've chosen those individuals to do so. That's what this press conference will be about. And in the coming days, I'm confident that folks will make the judgment that we made the right call. So we have hired William Johnson, a person who was a part of the City of Baltimore's leadership team. When you check him out, you will see that he is one of the most well-respected members of Mayor Rawlings Blake administration. I can tell you that based upon the number of times that she called to curse me out about you joining our team. He will serve as the interim director of the Department of Watershed Management. William Johnson joined my administration earlier this month, and I'm pleased to have someone with his invaluable experience come and lead a steady hand to the Department of Watershed Management. Mr. Johnson brings more than 20 years of experience in infrastructure management and emergency response to his role. He previously served as the director of the Department of Transportation for the City of Baltimore, where he, as I said previously, was a member of the senior team there. He has also served as the prime contractor for the state of Florida's Department of Transportation. Mr. Johnson assisted local governments and nonprofits in developing disaster plans and assessing damage after a disaster had occurred. He worked with both the public and private sectors to develop projects and identify facilities and funding for infrastructure and utilities damaged by natural disasters. Through his career, William Johnson has demonstrated steady leadership and sound judgment. He has developed and managed budgets in excess of $500 million and put a special focus on reducing customer service complaints and working with state and local agencies to achieve a 96% customer satisfaction rate in the departments that he managed. He has managed municipal waste collection operations for a population of 1.5 million people and assisted with cutting-edge upgrades and technology deployments for complex water systems. William will be supported by Faye DeMassimo. She's the general manager of the $250 million Renew Atlanta Infrastructure Bond Program. Faye's reputation, not only in the city of Atlanta, but throughout the region, is known as one of the most competent officials in the public sector. I've made my feelings known about how thrilled I am that she joined my administration, and we will be expanding her portfolio to include the improvements in Watershed because of the large number of capital-intensive projects that Watershed is undertaking. For example, the city is making a $280 million investment at the Bellwood Quarry. This will ensure clean, safe drinking water and a more than 30-day water reserve supply as the city moves forward for the next 100 years. We're installing the largest permeable paver project in the world, with 6 miles of permeable pavers through Peoplestown, Mechanicsville, and Summerhill. Public health and safety have seen dramatic improvements during recent intense rain events. We're investing more than $60 million in the Upper Proctor Creek watershed to improve the quality of inner city streams, and through key green infrastructure systems, residents will continue to see beautification and investment in communities on the west side and towards the north part of our city near Memorial Park. As it relates to Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, I'm pleased to announce that Roosevelt Council, who has served as the city's chief financial officer and as the deputy manager and chief financial officer for Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, will now serve as the interim general manager. Roosevelt served as the deputy for Lewis Miller, the former leader of Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. I'm pleased to announce that we will also have the support of Frank Rucker, who manages the airport's capital program. Frank will bring his expertise and leadership to support Roosevelt in his new capacity and has been in place for some time. So the $6 billion capital program will continue to be managed by the individual who has been managing it all along, and he is another individual with an impeccable reputation in the industry. I'm also pleased that Michael Smith and Greg Richardson, two individuals that were key to the lease negotiations which resulted in a 20-year lease with Delta Airlines, will continue to be a part of the senior management team, and I am grateful that they have shared with me that they're happy to continue to serve. I'm focused on maintaining the dominance of Hartsfield-Jackson Airport and ensuring its future success, because we have a great deal to do. With a $6 billion capital expansion program, including plans to build 2 new domestic parking decks, add 5 additional gates to Concourse T, construct a 6th runway, and invest more than $900 million in a new concourse. We have a great deal to do. Our relationship with Delta Airlines has never been stronger, as evidenced by our recent 20-year lease agreement that was put in place in this room just a little while ago. The bottom line really is a very simple one. The decisions that we made together on Friday are about the future. In Watershed, we have more projects going on than we have had at any time in 30 years, and I want a steady hand involved in that effort. The Watershed Department is well funded, as the people of Atlanta in March voted to renew the 1% sales tax. We also negotiated the longest water and sewer consent decree. That effort was led by Kathy Hampton, our city attorney, in the United States of America, and as a result, we have not had to increase our water rates during my entire time in office. We will have a laser-like focus on improving the customer service experiences. We will not have rate increases. We will address the conditions in Memorial Park and Peoplestown, and we will change them. And we will improve the public's perception of the Department of Watershed. As it relates to the future of the airport, with Roosevelt Council, Michael Smith, Frank Rucker, and Greg Richards, we will partner with our airline leaders to ensure that Hartsfield-Jackson International is made a higher priority with our TSA administrator and with our Homeland Security Secretary, Jay Johnson, who happens to be a proud Morehouse graduate. And so we'll be looking to Secretary Johnson to show the hometown of Morehouse a little more affection as it relates to TSA and Homeland Security. We will have a sharper focus on the customer service experience. You all know that we introduced elements to the airport like Wi-Fi. We will improve those elements. But we're also going to have a back-to-basics approach regarding things like airport cleanliness, including the restroom, floors, common areas in Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, and those items will be a priority for the new leadership team. Third and finally, I want to announce today that we will bid out the Park Atlanta contract within the next 30 days. The council has made multiple inquiries about the future of Park Atlanta and the city of Atlanta. I want you to know, effective today, that we will be bidding that out. We will have to have some extension with Park Atlanta while we go through the procurement process to make sure that we have coverage in the interim. The theme of these statements and of the actions I have taken is real simple, and I hope everyone understands it very, very clearly. The message from my administration is this: we are not slowing down. We are speeding up, because the people of Atlanta deserve a government that works as hard as they do, and that's exactly what we're going to have. With that, I'll open up for questions from any member who wants to ask me something.
Mayor, you have a year and a half to go. Do you intend for these two gentlemen to run these two departments for that time? Or are you doing
You know what? The bottom line, Morris, is that we're working through that right now. What today is about is making it clear to the people of Atlanta that the people that we have in place are highly talented, sought-after professionals that can run these departments effortlessly and with the focus that I want made upon them. In the coming days and weeks, I'll lay out exactly what my intentions are. But as I go into the fourth quarter, I want my team to be aligned and moving in the same direction. And I want people who want to finish this term on a high note. I designed my term in office the way it is right now. The bottom line is we are executing hundreds of projects. The city is in the strongest financial position that it's been in more than 30 years. We will pass a budget in just a few weeks that will put the city in a position where it has more than $151 million in reserves, no tax increases in 6 years, the highest credit rating that it has had in 30 years, 8 credit ratings upgrades, largest police force in history, largest fire department in the history of the city. All of these things that we're done, and we're not going to give it away in the fourth quarter.
You mentioned that you want a steady hand moving forward. Are there other positions in your administration that you don't have a steady hand?
Well, let me tell you this. I'll tell you this. So before we came out, we were having a meeting with the folks just to run through what we were going to say during the course of the press conference. There was nobody who agreed to stay in the hall. So a meeting of 6 people became a meeting of 30, and I assured everyone, I feel good about my team. But the bottom line is that one of the things that my mentors, Willie Brown and Andrew Young, have constantly told me, 2 people who I think were among the finest mayors in America ever, they constantly told me that you constantly have to have the team that you want, and never use the excuse of where you are in your term to not make adjustments if, as the CEO, you believe that adjustments need to be made. And I would just point to our track record. I will put our track record up over the last 6 years up against anybody's. And so, just to make it clear, my style is going to be to make adjustments if I feel that adjustments are needed. And so I made the judgment that we needed to go in a new direction. I don't have any bad feelings at all, don't have any comments at all about people that were a member of my team. But we are going in a new direction, and you all certainly deserve an explanation and to see who are the people who are going to be executing 2 of the city, the region, and the state's most valuable assets. So that's what happened.
Mayor, how much did the backlash from Delta Airlines, starting the circumstance of Qatar Airways' arrival, play into your dismissal of Mr. South?
None at all. Absolutely none.
Was the TSA, I know you said you wanted to have more specifics with the priority, making that a priority with the Homeland Security Secretary. Was the lines, the growing concern coming into the summer, and will you move with this new team to privatize that security screening process at the airport?
So I'm focused on the future, so that's what I'm going to talk about. The lines are very concerning to me, and I've expressed that repeatedly. I've expressed it in cabinet, I've expressed it on Twitter, I've expressed it as I've gone out to the airport campus personally multiple times, as mayor and as a private citizen. What I will tell you is that we're getting ready to leverage all of our relationships to prepare for the summer. One of the things that I say all of the time is that Hartsfield-Jackson needs to be treated like the busiest airport on earth, because it is. And so that's the conversation that we're going to have with Secretary Johnson, and that's the conversation that we're going to have with the TSA administrator. But what we're going to do differently is we're going to do it in a coordinated fashion with our airport partners. because they're being harmed as much as we are. And so, you know, I was out at the airport, and one of the best comments I heard came from a gentleman who just grabbed my arm and whispered in my ear. He said, "Would you have your mother standing in this line?" That's what he said. And so the bottom line is that we have 2 construction projects that we're going to expedite the completion of that relate to the lines. But I don't want anyone to believe that the judgments we made were solely about the lines. I will share that there is a layering effect that you have with issues. And so the customer service experience is definitely one that's important to me. But today is about what are we going to do about it. And I think that you're going to see pretty significant changes as it relates to TSA, the handling of the lines, cleanliness of the property, management of the restroom facilities, cleanliness of the concourses, really basic stuff. Stuff that can get away from you if you get comfortable. And so, you know, my conversation with my team is just not going to get comfortable.
So both dismissals had more to do with overall management?
I won't comment on what the dismissals had to do with.
Okay.
What I'm laying out is where we're going. What I'm laying out is if you check out William Johnson's reputation and if you check out Faye's reputation, they're first rate. So my message to the people in the city of Atlanta is that you are in good hands. If you check out the team that will be operating Hartsfield-Jackson, they're first rate, and you're in good hands. And we're getting ready to add additional resources to expedite improvements that I feel should have been made some time ago. And that was what this was really about.
Mayor Reed, Mr. Southwell
I'm gonna do the
was
reporters
concerned
first.
about
Yes.
Security at the airport as far as fingerprinting.
So you're gonna have to, so hold on, hold on, wait a minute, you don't run my press conference.
This was a matter of the future
okay.
that you say you wanted to address. This
Yes,
is the
ma'am.
future
Sorry,
about-
my question is, we have a date
Fingerprint.
for the south
Yes.
side to open back up. Is that still gonna happen? You talked about speeding up projects, is that still on track?
So here's what's gonna happen. We're getting ready to have a briefing and an update on where we stand with all of our major projects. And after we have a briefing and an update, you all know that because these events happened over the weekend, you didn't have a chance to have a conversation with me. So what I wanted to do was, first thing Monday morning, make myself available and let you know what is happening with these enterprises. Then hold on, let me finish, man. I'm gonna answer everybody, I'm not running.
Thank you.
You all know I finished my press conference,
Thank you.
okay? The bottom line is that both teams are gonna report out. William has to get over the watershed, and he has to make an assessment and tell me what's going on. He has a terrific CFO who's in place, so that will occur today. And the team at Hartsfield-Jackson will meet, and they will give me a report on the areas that are a priority for me. I will tell you, I want the lines at the airport resolved, and I'm prepared to put skin in the game. So if it's a TSA issue, I raised the issue of privatization more than 2 years ago. I've been in constant communication with the person that runs San Francisco's airport, which privatized their security and TSA element years ago. This weekend, I was with Mayor Michael Coleman, the former mayor of Columbus. They privatized their functions years ago. I've had multiple communications about privatizing this function in private. We're going to explore that and see if it's the best decision. I'm also going to consult with Atlanta City Council throughout the course of the day and give them a briefing on where we're going as well. The bottom line is we couldn't make these changes without getting in front of you, explaining the positions that I've taken as the leader of this city, and showing you who we plan to address these changes. Thomas?
When you brought up privatization in the past and recently, what has been the response from federal officials? What have they said to you when you have brought up that option?
It's hard. It takes a long time. You're going to have a lot of issues with unions trying to make the change.
What would happen at other airports and how that could...
They didn't need to say about what happened at other airports because I know the mayor of San Francisco and I know mayors who have executed. And the bottom line is the mayors that have privatized their function have greater flexibility and improve the performance of their lines. And so I feel like that needs to be an option for the city of Atlanta. And I have said that for some time. And for some reason, the speed around that decision did not meet with the conversations I've had about this privatization effort. Yes.
In terms of Ms. Macrina, she'd been under fire for a while in terms of things going on at the watershed department. Can you shed any light on what exactly led to the decision this past weekend to let her go?
I don't think that anyone has been more supportive of the leadership at Watershed Management than I have. And I'll just share, without Kathy tackling me, that I felt very good about the accomplishment of the 13-year extension of the water and sewer consent decree. And so the way that I manage my team is performance and results counts. People don't know it, but the 13-year extension of our water and sewer consent decree, which I played a pretty significant role in, which Kathy led, is one of the biggest game changers that the people of Atlanta have never felt, because it took a consent decree that was forcing us to build our water system in a rapid, haphazard way, and it took it out 13 years. So in fairness to Ms. Macrina, she certainly had wins, right? And I also have another philosophy. I am very slow to let external forces cause me to lose a member of my team. You all come from a business environment. When employees can take out a cabinet member, they'll take out a cabinet member. So I'm very protective of my team. And so if you allow one cabinet member to be taken out by the workforce, what you'll find is conquering armies don't go home, they go conquer something else. Right? I know Morris knows this better than anybody because they've never had a better friend than Morris, but they're pretty aggressive. You know, they're an aggressive group. And so, you know, in fairness to everybody, folks had some good wins. And so I think that when you're looking at folks' career, you got to count the wins. And so that was some of it.
Mayor, what are you looking for with your next parking enforcement agency that you haven't seen recently from Park Atlanta?
We need some flexibility and the ability to protest when you are ticketed. So one of the biggest issues that I hear from people related to Park Atlanta is they feel that when there is a situation related to their parking experience, there is no additional level of inquiry. And so what I would like to see during the next bid process is if you have an objectionable experience, I would like for you to be able to interact with the municipal court. I think that that would change a lot of the feeling that somebody puts a ticket on your car, no matter what you saw, whether you have a camera that shows you had paid and had additional time, you don't get a hearing. And so hopefully in this new bid, the responsive party will make a hearing available.
Mayor,
That's what I'm looking for. I want to
Yes, thank you,
take
Mr. Thank you, Mr.
the
Reed.
gentleman that,
Mayor Reed.
yes.
There was some concern about whether or not Atlanta was gonna require fingerprint background check. And Mr. Southwell was very strong, like other members of your cabinet and council, that a background check for the security of the jewel of Atlanta in this region, that it would also have a fingerprint background check. Have his position on that cause you to make any kind of switch or change, or going in the future? Will you also stand and protect, or would your position be to have top security that may include or would include fingerprint background checks?
So I supported the fingerprint and for background check standard. So anyone that had a notion that there was space between myself and the airport leader on fingerprint, they're incorrect or misguided. But here's the deal. My colleague, Raz Baraka, who's the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, negotiated a 10-year agreement with Uber at about $1 million a year. He's got a different regulatory framework, but he raised some issues that I was sensitive to, that the background check component led to some equity disparities. So Here's my position. We need to look at it hard, but I still come down now on the side of fingerprinting. That's still where I am. But I did want to be candid. There are other sides to this conversation that I hadn't considered. Here's what I will say about the Uber conversation. I believe that anytime you have a major rollout with a major entity, that there should be much more background work done before you roll it out. So, you know, there should have been, in my opinion, multiple meetings to try to get to an agreement that when you announced it, either people were in the boat or they were out of the boat. So that's my opinion on it. And then as it relates to Uber, you know, they have a different position. They pulled out of some places. But, you know, I am a fan of the taxi cab industry, support taxi cab drivers because of what they do. And so there's going to have to be a balance.
Mayor,
Hold on, wait a minute. I'm going to finish this out. Taxi cab drivers go through fingerprinting. Other drivers go through fingerprinting. So, you know, one of the things that we've come up with is to create a fingerprinting location out at Hartsville-Jackson for convenience, which in my mind would take away the excuse of not engaging in fingerprints.
Mayor, quick question
In
on
the
Super
very
Bowl.
back by the glass, and then Morris.
In relation to the airport and the new head there, will they have the authority to make more personnel cuts, and do you anticipate more cuts as it relates to the airport?
I have a classic saying: when you work for me, you run your department until you don't. So somebody taps you on the shoulder and tells you to stop, you run it. And I think if you talk to the people who work for me, they will share that they operate their departments with very little interference. Maria?
Both the Hartsfield-Jackson and Watershed are dealing with millions, billions of contracts going
Yes.
on. What assurances can you give the city taxpayers that those contracts will be let out with the most ethical standards that the city adheres to? What
You know,
kind of safeguards are being
my
taken?
assurance, Maria, is this. My administration has gone through more scrutiny regarding airport procurements and other procurements than any administration in history. Let me say that again. So my administration delivered to the public during a $3.3 billion procurement, 2 million documents that occupied the entire city council chambers, 500,000 emails, right? Multiple lawsuits. And you know what happened when it was all said and done? Nothing. So rather than talk about my ethics, I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to live them. And so every single entity or individual who has made allegations against me on ethical grounds has lost. And so what I would tell the public do is sometimes the facts and the record has to matter. The process around the $3.3 billion procurement was as hard and as tough as anything that I've seen. These other procurements in the future compared to what we went through when I was a young mayor in 2011 really are quite small when you contrast it to what we did at the beginning. And so I appreciate that question, but everybody that knows me knows that I don't fear litigation. The reason I don't fear litigation is, one, I have counsel that I trust, but two, I know what we have done and how I live my life. The rest just falls where it falls.
You've had oversight committees for different projects, and I didn't know if you were looking to doing that with any of the projects, major.
I'm certainly open to that. We have an ACP meeting coming up either Friday or next week, and so we'll be discussing that with the group that we put over the Renew Atlanta bond, and perhaps we will expand that to include these other public projects, because I want the public to feel terrific. But at the end of the day, the one thing I've learned as mayor is that you'll never satisfy folks, no matter how much litigation has come that we have prevailed on, all of the people that we have beaten, all of the folks that have said things that have been proven to be false and inaccurate, and the extraordinary amount of documents and discovery we've produced that's never been done before in the history of any mayor that's ever had this job before. But I'll tell you this, I'm not going to be hamstrung by threats. You got something to say about me? Put it up.
Mayor, the Super Bowl. There's an Atlanta team in North Carolina today trying to get the Super Bowl. What would that mean for Atlanta to secure another Super Bowl?
You know, I think it would be terrific. You know, I really want to see the Super Bowl come to Atlanta for the people of Atlanta, but I also want to see it come to the city of Atlanta for Arthur Blank and the Falcons organization, because I just think that he's a stand-up individual and he's done everything the league has asked. Typically, when you invest $1.4 billion in a new facility, the Super Bowl follows. So as far as I'm concerned, we have done our part. The city of Atlanta passed the tax relief that the NFL asked for. We built a stadium that the NFL asked for. Governor Deal passed the tax relief that the NFL asked for. And so I feel real good about our prospects, but I feel it deepest for Arthur Blank and the Falcons organization.
Are you going to be there tomorrow?
I don't know where I'm going to be in an hour. Yes.
We gotta go. We gotta go. We gotta go.
Here's what I think. I think that we will improve the service regarding the lines at the airport significantly. I spent probably 30 to 45 minutes on the phone with Lewis Miller, who ran the airport for me. When Lewis was running the airports, we had queue times that were 30 minutes and under. So even if you have a conversation about the 14% spike, the experts that I've talked to said that the 14% spike in outbound travel should not equate to wait times that run 60, 70, 90 minutes. So that's not me talking, that's folks that run airports. And they said, because we have had a highly successful year. We moved 100 million passengers last year. I've tried to be thoughtful and understanding about it. But what was made clear to me is that a 14% origination number should not lead to the kind of wait times that we have seen. And so I don't want to just ask my folks to make a miracle. But what I've made clear to them is I'm prepared to put skin in the game. If it's a TSA issue, if it's a Homeland Security, let's partner together, but let's come forward with the most aggressive approach that we can have. I have to believe I've got decent relationships in Washington. I have to believe that my relationships and Delta's relationships and Hartsfield-Jackson's relationships, working in a coordinated fashion, will deliver better results for the traveling public. I woke up on Sunday morning, I was watching the Sunday shows. If you look at George Stephanopoulos' segment, they led with a photo of Atlanta, Georgia's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport lines. On This Week with George Stephanopoulos. That's not something that can stand because our airport is the most significant economic generator in the state. We have 2 construction projects that are ongoing, and only recently did we say what resources will be required to increase the time that you can complete them. So my statement is about the future. I want to meet with everybody who is involved in our construction, and let's have an open public conversation and say, what do you need to achieve all of the changes working on a nonstop basis? Because I'm telling you, the public notices. And if the public feels like you're laying it all on the field, and you can stand up in a room like this and lay out in detail that I am doing everything I can humanly do, I think they'll cut you some slack. But when you're out at the airport and the TSA line has been moved from one place to another, and there's a woman who is yelling at you to tell you where the line is, this isn't secondhand, this is me standing there. And is doing it in front of me. And then a person who works for the airport tells me it's like this every day. And then a sweet lady tells me You should have got here 30 minutes ago because the wait time was 90 minutes. It was out to the curb, Mayor. Right? So all I'm saying is that we're going to do every single thing that we can do, and it's got to have urgency to it. And what I have seen is the public responds to this. So in 5 days, we're going to have another event like this where we're going to lay out in a public fashion all of our efforts. And if the lines are still tough, then I'll just take the hit. But the bottom line, candidly, is I always take the hit. Nobody's saying nothing about the airport commissioner, right? Nobody says Ms. McCraney's name. People in Memorial Park, where we were walking through sewage together, sewage on people's back porch, they weren't saying the water commissioner's name. They were saying my name. And let me be clear, I own that. And I understand it comes with my job. But I tell you this, I'm not going to tie my hands. You're not going to have both. We're either going to have results or we're going to change. You know, one of the folks on my team says all the time, if you want to change the people, at some point you got to change the people. Yes?
It just sounds like you just said you made the move because of the lines.
No.
That's what I just heard.
Well, then you must have been in another room, because what I said is that this is a layer of things. I said that earlier very carefully. I was asked a direct question about my experiences. And as I said, on a team, you have wins and losses. And so that was an element of it. She asked a very direct question about the TSA lines, and what I'm telling you is we're getting ready to go all in on those lines, but it is an element of my decision, but not the driving one.
If you're saying that you're talking about the future, to build on the future, you would need to kind of say what you're moving away from, though. I mean, shouldn't the conversation right now be starting about why you are making the moves in the first place?
That would be.
What has happened and why you need to move forward?
That would be easy if we weren't in a situation where we could be subject to litigation. So I understand your question, and it would be wonderful for me to lay out all of the backstory. That we never do that with personnel decisions. What happens when you make a personnel decision is you say we made a personnel decision. And you know, just judging from our experience with Mr. Cochran, that we may be in a situation that is related to litigation. So it would be irresponsible for me as a fiduciary to hash that out in a press conference. That said, it would be totally unacceptable for me to make the calls that I made and not be prepared to stand in front of you all and take your questions until all of them have been answered to the best that I can. Aaron?
Mayor, obviously there's a message to the citizens, but are you worried about this transition, the impact on the business community, the lines and all the other challenges that we just laid out? Are you worried about reaction, maybe negative impact on investment here until all this cleans up?
Absolutely not. I mean, you can show me a mayor that has had stronger support from the business community than I have. Go get one. Delta has been briefed on what happened on Friday. They're fully supportive. Our airline partners are fully supportive, and we have a competent staff and team. And as it relates to results, anytime you want to get a camera and sit down with me and talk about what happened while I was mayor versus what happened in the last 20 years of other people, I'm happy to have that conversation. 23,500 new jobs. Atlanta is now a center for attracting jobs and employment. The number of regional and corporate headquarters relocations, population growth. Prior to this meeting, we opened the Atlanta studio led by Ryan Gravel. I mean, so I'm prepared to, and we've got a 68% right track number. The nation's right track number is 70% unfavorable. Our right track number is 68% favorable. You want to talk about my personal job approval? My personal job approval is at 69. So anybody that wants to do this, let's do it fully. The people of Atlanta are with me, and what I can show is when I've made changes, the people that we made changes with are wildly successful. I don't have a better example than Dr. Clementich at Invest Atlanta. So when I've had to make a call, I made the call, and generally, things have come out on the other side in a fashion that is good. But one thing that Mayor Brown and I talked about this weekend, you cannot be hamstrung by a clock. If you see something as a CEO that is unacceptable to you, call it. Whether it's 2 years, a year and a half, or a year. Otherwise, we're all just, nobody's here for this. Nobody's here for this. So that's what I feel about it. Okay, I'm gonna take this one and then go left and then back to Maria. Yes?
Marie, there has been a good amount of turnover in your administration among department heads. Do you think that that has any negative effect on morale in the department, or?
First of all, I would push back against your premise. The amount of turnover that we've had in my administration is not higher. In fact, it's lower than we've had in the previous two. Go check it. So it hasn't been high. I would push back against that. We've actually had a very stable administration. When you look at the COO position, you had Peter Raymond, who was going to be here for 2 years. He was succeeded by Duria Faruqi, who went and became a partner at Bain. That's a pretty terrific result for a city. We had an interim who would run our watershed. He's now been succeeded by a guy named Dan Gordon. Totally common in mayoral administrations. At the airport, you had Lewis Miller for the first term after a search. He finished the term. He's retired. He lives in Salt Lake City. He's very happy. I talked to him the other day. We then brought up his deputy, who was there for 2 years as a lieutenant and then 2 years as the leader. So Joanne McCrena had been at Watershed for some time. So I want to know who you all are talking about. My city attorney has been with me the entire time. My CFO has been with me for 4.5 years. My chief of staff has been here every day. So anyone who is talking about turnover is just making up a story and not comparing it to the previous 2 mayors. So that turnover deal is just not true. But the other thing is, when you have the kind of financial success, our city needed bench strength to execute on the number of projects we have. And so we have went out and we got that bench strength. I started recruiting William a year ago. First time he turned me down. Stephanie Rawlings Blake is my dear friend. I recruited him a year ago. I started recruiting Faye a year ago. She turned me down. But once we got in a certain financial position, and what I said to them was, we don't have a lot of political battles to fight. Right now, we're really focused on executing projects. Right? And you look at my Public Works Commissioner, Richard Mendoza. So before you all start talking about turnover, you need to check the record. It's not really true. Sanji Jacobs, my communications director, now works for the CEO of Cox Enterprises. So what I would say is, look where my people go. Theron Johnson works at Greenbrick Trowick. A deputy city attorney is now a judge on the State Court of Georgia. First person to ever come out of the city of Atlanta and be appointed to the bench. You want me to keep going? So what I'm showing is the talent of my team. Look where my team goes. Right? So anybody that's talking about turnover, Eloisa came in with Brian McGowan, who worked for the Department of Commerce. She worked there 6 years. She was a finalist in the Search for Invest Atlanta, didn't get the job, sucked it up, and delivered NCR. She didn't grumble, didn't quit, and delivered a $250 million project when she could have torpedoed the deal because of her relationship with one of their senior executives. When the opportunity came, I appointed her. So let's go through it. Right? Would you have turned down $500,000 from Bain? Or $250,000 from Cox? Or $300,000 for Cox if you had a kid? Her daughter's mouth is the same size as my daughter's mouth. William, did I not try to recruit you a year ago?
Yes, sir.
Did you not turn me down?
Yes, sir.
Did Stephanie Rawlings Blake not call me personally?
Yes, she did.
The point I'm making, folks, is my team is stronger. Stronger. Ann Torres worked for Sanji. Before Ann Torres came to work for me, she worked for Cory Booker. Really? Roosevelt was the CFO of Atlanta during the roughest times Atlanta had financially. Then he went out of the airport and worked under Lewis Miller, who I think did an excellent job running our airport. The two gentlemen that helped me negotiate the Delta lease, I think they did an excellent job on the lease negotiation, although it was supposed to have been done by December 31st. We signed it in this office when? In April. Okay? Yes.
Mr. Southwell was a big proponent of international air service, and you got two flights one arrived last week, one you're preparing to receive from Qatar Airways,
Yeah.
and then a delegation was in India last week as well. I wonder if the back to basics approach is going to put an impetus on taking the foot off the accelerator for international air.
Not at all. It's like I said, we're speeding up. I mean, when Turkish Airways announced, first of all, one of the people that doesn't get any credit regarding the Turkish Airways negotiation was Candace Bird. The person that got on the plane and actually went to Turkey and met with the Turkish government and Turkish airport officials is on your left. Nobody ever talks about her, though. When Turkish Airways opened, I was at the ribbon cutting and I was at dinner with my friend Muhtar Kent. We're going full speed. I was there all night, right? The next day, I was being protested by going to Qatar Airways event to welcome them, because I'm trying to send a message. You're either in the international game or you're out. I woke up this morning to some people tweeting about me being against women because I went to welcome an airline. We have to understand when we're dealing with airlines from other parts of the country, they have different values and operate differently than we do. So if we're going to apply a standard, right, it's going to make us hard for us to be the most connected city in the world in the United States, which is my goal. My very simple goal is for it to be easier for you to get from Atlanta to any place else in the world and to pass New York. But I can't do that if we start getting a reputation for a place that is unpleasant to travel through. Now, on Friday when this termination occurred, I was in meetings in New York. On Saturday, I flew home to be at my friend's daughter's wedding. I went through the line in New York in 7 minutes at LaGuardia. Stop it. I've been to LAX. Went through the line in 27 minutes. Stop it. And I don't mean with personnel. I mean just, hey, I'm a passenger. And so my point is we can't do all of these things to be the most globally connected U.S. airport and then have George Stephanopoulos open his segment with Atlanta as the poster child for long lines. Certainly when you're at Hartsfield-Jackson, your resources are unlimited. Have you ever noticed when you go out to the airport and they change something, they put it up, they change it, and then it goes right back? It's because the airport isn't connected to the city and they have the resources to execute.
Meanwhile, on the international side, the weights are pretty low. That's
Yeah.
where I've traveled through quite a bit, and
Yeah.
I've never even noticed the problem. So would you ever see the potential of opening that side of the airport to relieve some of the pressure on the other?
You're either very well connected or you're psychic. So what we're trying to do right now is to determine whether a shuttle would be in order to move some of the passengers who are using the domestic side to move them to the international side to make that process more fluid and seeing if we can do it. So we're exploring that right now. My issue is I don't think that we should have had to get to the point where we are to be exploring those possibilities. In the very back, and then Maria, with the hat on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right down on Ward Avenue, on Boulevard, water been going down the street for 2 years straight. I called the water commission, told the water commission upstairs what's going on. The water's still going down the street, and they'll came over to 11, 22, and do nothing about it. It's been 2 years straight, Mayor.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, today's your lucky day. Because if that water is still flowing, we're gonna fix it right now.
Thank you, Lord, and the street about to fall in over there on Wall.
We're getting ready to see in 15 minutes.
And plus, you'll see the sidewalk, all leaning sidewalk.
I understand.
It mess up my leg.
Now you're getting into the millions, but the water
I can't go on no more.
is getting ready. But let me tell you something, Brother Bat. I understand. I'm on it. I'm gonna put you in a car. No, don't please. I'm gonna put you in a car with my team. You all gonna go look at it. If you show me some water that's running,
Yes, sir.
it's getting ready to be fixed.
Thank you, Lord.
Okay?
Thank
That's
you, Lord.
right. Yeah,
Thank you,
no.
Lord. Thank you, Lord.
Maria?
Mayor, you had talked about how good your relationship is with Delta Airlines, but I understand that they were not very happy of you going to the Qatar event. Can you describe a little bit about what transpired? I think they thought you were not going to go, and then you attended, and I heard not happy case.
Here's the deal. Everyone knows how I feel about the leadership of Delta at Delta, but I have a dual role as the leader of the city. So folks who are at Delta know that there were multiple other requests made of me as it relates to that opening that I did not participate in. But we can't send two messages, right? Can't send the message of welcoming and openness the night before to Turkish Airlines and then not participate in any way at Qatar. So my friends at Delta did express their frustration, and I did express my reason for attending the event, and I think that we left on very good terms.
Who did you talk to, CEO Bastian? Is that, can you share with me?
The leadership team at Delta.
You had mentioned when you were talking about Park Atlanta and bidding out that contract, that one common complaint you had is people not being able to defend that, yes, I paid for it, or yes, it was broke, or what have you, that they didn't have a day in court, so to speak. Would it be out of hand to turn over public parking back to APD?
You know what? We're giving thought to that. Let me explain my thinking around that. In an environment across America where the murder rate and violence is increasing. So even though I feel confident in our chief and think we're in a good place, I'm not comfortable, given where we are, diverting police resources to parking management. There are two things that would happen. Number one, the police officers would have to be retrained to do a function that they haven't done in a decade. That process will probably take 12 months to 2 years before you get it working well. The second really is just the crime rate. You know, if you look at crime across cities in the United States, not just in Atlanta, it's a constant battle to keep it in check. And so my feeling is I want all of our law enforcement personnel focused on criminals and making sure that we do everything we can to keep people in the city safe. And I've heard that because there are a number of people who tell me that if we put that function in the police department, it could be a significant revenue generator. I don't enjoy that public conversation, right? I would rather that be a private effort done by non-sworn citizens where we focus on crime and stopping robberies, stopping murders, stopping panhandling, stopping other kinds of things. That's where I am on it. But there's a debate on my team, and I haven't come down. I haven't made a decision where I'm going to come down. I'm just being transparent. Council wanted to know what we were going to do to Park Atlanta. There was some chatter that we were just going to extend their contract. And so I thought today, given the issues we're already discussing, that we would discuss them all. Okay? Thomas?
I'm sorry for getting wonky on the parking, but there's a belief that with parking revenue, that a good best practice is the revenue that's collected, you reinvest it in that immediate area. So that could be, extra patrols, trash cans, streetscape design, rather than parking revenue going into a general fund and then maybe it funds some of those things. Would you consider parking revenue going directly back into investing in the area where that parking revenue is collected?
I'm open to a portion of that being the case. But I mean, I will tell you, Thomas, I mean, you guys don't write about it much, but I mean, we got the ball in the worst economy in 80 years. People have no appreciation for how hard it has been to manage this government, make the investments that we made, and not raise taxes. And so I'm open to a portion of that, but I will tell you frankly, I'm not prepared to commit at all or tie my team's hands at all on the revenue side, because here's where we are. My successor is going to get the city with a full tank, right? They're going to inherit an Atlanta with rising population, rising job growth. We've cut the unemployment rate almost in half. They're going to have probably $175 million in the Treasury, and they're never going to have, we're not going to have any property taxes while I'm mayor for 8 years. So my successor is going to have a full tank. If they want to make the decision to raise taxes, God bless them. If they want to make the decision to run down the rainy day fund that we worked so hard to build, God bless them. If they want to make the decision to put the AA plus credit rating that we have worked so hard to build, God bless them. But I know how I'm going to leave this place. I'm going to leave it with a full tank. So anytime people talk to me about tying our hands with regard to revenue, that idea is generally going to be rejected because people don't have a sense of how bad it was when I sat in that office the first year, and Jim Beard came and told me that the property tax digest dropped $10 million. The second year, it dropped 15 million year one, 10 million year two, 5 million year three. And at the same time, I was trying to hire 800 to 900 police officers. So, you know, I understand the shortness of memory, but that's not going to impact me. Because the good thing that we have on our team, and we talk about it all the time, is we have the wind at our back. The public overall thinks that this town is moving in the right direction. As the leader of this government, I remain a reasonably popular figure, despite what gets written and said about me. Okay? Hey, thank you for coming.